Well, of course, she would say
Same thing, it's just a little bit set up a little different. Bigger print too.
Don't do me yet.
I always
Well,
like
we didn't do a great job, and we're very price sensitive and all the other isms out there. I wish we could have done
how did we know that this was going to happen? We should have known. We should have known that merge goes up and down.
It's a Japanese film.
right now.
Swings.
Okay.
Fire extinguisher. To go back to the
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Orlando. I'm Linnea Nelson, and I'm the chair of the worship team here. With me today in our service is Paula Cole-Jones, co-author of the 8th Principle and member of the Article 2 Study Commission. Jones is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist and founder of Adore, a dialogue on race and ethnicity. Her work includes being a leader in advancing the 8th Principle and the community of communities as practices of the beloved community. Paula has authored articles in the UU World magazine, edited books published by Skinner House, and contributed to 3 other books. Recently, her home congregation established an annual award in her name, and we welcome Paula Cole-Jones to our congregation today through the wonders of Zoom. Also with me today are the Reverend Margalie Belizaire and the Director of Music, Aubrey Connolly Candelario, the Folk Ensemble, and board member Andy Berry, and Libby Jackson and Wende Phillips from the 1U 8th Principle team. And let's not forget our wonderful teams of people in the background who are working diligently to make sure today happens. So thank you to the tech team, the flower team, the welcome team, childcare team, and so many others. And please note that the nursery is open for toddlers to pre-K. Also, the RE children will be sung to their activities after the time for all ages. Youth are meeting in the gathering space now, so you're welcome to join them if you are a youth. We welcome all to join us as we explore our Unitarian Universalist faith, which draws us into the community of justice seekers with a commitment to lifelong spiritual growth and compassionate service to the community. Whoever you are, whoever you love, you are welcome here. Regardless of your color, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, age, physical or mental abilities, economic status, or religious background, we welcome you. For more information about our congregation and announcements, go to orlandouu.org or email info@orlandouu.org. And all announcements are on slides before and after the service, and they have links in the weekly update or on our website posted in the order of service, which you can access via the QR code. Thanks again for being here in person or online today.
Please say the words with me as we light the chalice. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Please remain seated as we watch a special video of How We Thrive virtual choir singing We Shall Be Known.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these vibes. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these vibes. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Learn to lead in love. Good morning, beloveds. It is good to be with you this morning for this important discussion on the eighth principle. It is especially important because as a congregation, you will be voting in less than a month on whether or not to adopt this proposed principle. May today's conversation with Paula gives you the additional information you need. I call us to worship with the words of Roddy Biggs embodied love, what does it mean? This type of love is not a love that we can simply name, but a love we must embody, a love that we must live out. We must embrace love, calling us forward, pushing us deeper within our bones and beings, a love that we must make known, not just by our words, but by our actions, our living, and our very being. This is what embodiment of love looks like. This is what the embodiment of love feels like. This is what the embodiment of love is all about, being present in the moment, in our body, mind, and soul. This presence overflows out of our hands and out of our feet, into the streets, onto the hearts of others. This is embodied love. This is love on fire. And this is love that will change the world. And this is love that will liberate and transform our living and the lives of others. So come, let us worship together, and let's begin by greeting one another.
Good morning, and I would like to welcome all the children and those young at heart to come forward. Come on up to the rug, everybody. And I'm going to ask you to stay standing for just a moment. Come on up. Come on up. So I want you to take your hand and show just how tall you think you were last year at this time. I think I was maybe this tall. I don't know. Okay, so you've grown. Okay, how about you guys? How tall were you last year, do you think? Maybe this tall? So I see a lot of growth here. Okay, come on and sit down on the rug. Yay for growth. So that's one way of growing, but here at 1U, we are also growing. We are growing so that we can be an anti-racist community, and we're going to be watching a little video today about the 8th principle, which is going to help us live into love and trust and belonging. So as you watch for the purple dot.
What is the 8th principle? Well, you know our 7 principles, right? They're things that matter to us. Things that guide how we are as a community, how we treat each other, and what we want to bring more of into the world. Just like each of us is always learning and growing, we know our principles have to grow sometimes too. This is the story of the 8th principle. A few years ago, some UU leaders spoke up. They told us these principles we love, they left something out. Like many who'd come before them, they spoke about how people still aren't being treated fairly because of the color of their skin, or where they come from, or other things that make them who they are. And that happens not only in the world at large, but even in our congregations, even in this one. So we need to do more to make sure that all people can feel welcome and loved here. We need to say more about our commitments to fight against racism, because racism hurts everybody. In fact, It hurts all 7 of our principles. And so, the 8th principle was born. The 8th principle is a commitment to fight against racism and oppression, and to build a beloved community of love and trust and belonging here in our church and in the world around us. We're going to be talking about the 8th principle a lot this spring, learning about it and what it means for this community. What does the 8th principle mean to you?
A purple sticker to remind you of the love and the trust and the belonging that we have for you here at 1U, and to remind us all to live an anti-racist life. But I don't think it's just you all who need to know that by any means. I think everybody here would like to feel the trust and love and belonging, so I'm going to give you each a strip, and just hand the strip to somebody in the congregation. Go out and give it to somebody you don't even know. So you can give it to somebody out there, even the folk ensemble or the tech people. Go ahead, walk around, find somebody to give these to, and they'll pass them around, and we'll give them out a few more. There you go. All right, there's a big one. Let's give them out. Here, I'll give you a couple more. You're good at this. Go ahead. You want to give a few more? Done with these, come on back up, and if you didn't get one, I'm going to walk around with my basket. So come on back up. Thank you so much. So as we all come back together and you go off to your RE activities, know that when we put our arms up and you walk through them, that is the love and protection and belonging that we want all of you to feel all the time here. So thank you for being helpers and wearing your purple stickers. Did I not get one? I'm gonna let it shine. I know I'm mine. This little light of mine. You guys know about that one. Gonna let it shine.
Oops. I'm Andy Berry, a member of the Board of Trustees in our beloved community. We invite you now into the practice of generosity. It's one of our spiritual values which sustains the life and ministries of our church community. Let us be grateful for the opportunity to give, for it's our privilege to be able to do so. And let us be grateful for our needs, for they give us the opportunity to practice receiving. I've been handed a note. Today's offering will be collected using baskets. We've gotten rid of the stick wand things, and will be passed through the pews. A welcome team member will be on the end of each pew in the aisle to assist in the process. Your job, after you make a contribution, if you do, and we hope you do, is to hand the basket to the person next to you. Thank you. If you want to donate to our Share the Plate partner for the month of February, Canine Companions, please do so online. The offering will now be collected. and note that you can also give online. Is offered here today in the spirit of gratitude and fellowship.
This is the time we set aside for deep sharing of our hearts and for prayer and meditation. If you have a sorrow that you need help with, or you need witness, or you have a joy that you wish to share, please contribute to our collective sharing of joys and sorrows to be read each Sunday during worship. You can do this several ways. You can email us, joysandconcerns@orlandouu.org, anytime during the week before Sunday. You can also, at the beginning of service, at the registration outside, complete a card, and then it will be shared here. And at the end of the very end of this part of this element of the service, we will invite you to participate in our candle lighting ritual. So, as you know, we invite you to bring your joys and your sorrows with you as you enter these doors. Come just as you are. Your whole self is welcome here in this community where we are creating sacred space together. We have some joys and concerns from the community to share. I want to first say the flowers you see back here, they are provided by Kathy Humblett, who says, celebrating my mom, Grace, who's visiting from Wisconsin. Craig's knee replacement surgery is finally scheduled. It's this Wednesday, March 1st, and Craig and Bev would appreciate your healing thoughts and energy, and we'll also appreciate cards and messages. Ellen Jr. would like to thank everyone who contributed to both the memorial service and the huge task of clearing house, the home of Sharon and Ellen. We have a joy. Oh, this is a joy, but it's, oh yeah, I was gonna say it's from Joy, but no, it's a joy. Alan and Suzanne Oberholzer, I apologize if I didn't say this correctly, are visiting, and they are here, if you wanna. Lee Williams says, my family has two joys to share. Ren is not with us today because she is at her first job. And on Tuesday, February 28th, my husband and I will celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary. Yes, there. And this is from Jeffrey Moore. My mother died Saturday, February 18th, in the care of the loving staff of the inpatient care unit at Advent Health Hospice. She was 98 years old and 4 months old. She lived a life full of love and wonder. Jeffrey over there. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, Jeffrey, you and your family. From the larger world community, we join our community in mourning the death of Tiana Major, Natasha Augustine, and Dylan Lyons following the tragic murder which took place in Pine Hills on Wednesday of this past week. May the people of East Palestine, Ohio, come to not just feel safe, but be safe in their town following the derailment of a train carrying toxic chemicals earlier this month. Let us send loving kindness to all those who are impacted all over the world and are suffering because of wars, earthquakes, cyclones, winter storms, and other conditions beyond their control. May they find relief somehow. And for all the joys and sorrows shared, and for those held close to the heart, let us pray, let us celebrate, and let's send each other healing energy. And with that in mind, I invite us into meditative prayer with the words of Reverend William Sinkford, only begun. So sit as comfortably as you can. Close your eyes if that feels good for you, and meditate on these words. Spirit of life and love, dear God of all nations, there is so much work to do. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us to hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history and find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. Amen, and may it be so. And now, we invite you to participate in our candle lighting ritual. And if you are willing and able, we invite you to focus your energy on the diverse, multicultural, beloved community we want to create. And if not that, please find some other way to use this time to reflect deeply. And Aubrey will play some music for us.
My name is Libby Jackson, and I'm on the 8th Principal team here at 1U. These words are from Reverend Viola Abbott from the book Blue Notes. Toward a place of wholeness, Viola Abbott. We are Unitarian Universalists. When we lift up our 7 principles, some of us think of them as a form of theology, but they are more important to our collective than that. They do not tell us what we should believe. They tell us how we should be. They tell us how we should act in the larger world and with each other. We are brought here today by the fact that Unitarian Universalism has fallen short on the image that was presented to the world and to many of those who embrace this religion. But we are also brought here today by the truth that Unitarian Universalism has shifted course to move towards a place of wholeness, a place that has perhaps never existed for us as a denomination. It has been a long and sometimes unforgiving road today. We are here today because we are mindful of the past and because we have hope for the future. We want the practice of this faith to be fulfilling manifestation of its promise. Open your hearts. Seek new ways of understanding.
As promised, we told you we were going to bring you Paula Cole-Jones via technology. Oh. And once again, welcome and thank you so much for being with us this morning as you help us really come to terms with this very important conversation and vote that will be held mid-month, next month. So, as you all know, we're going to be talking about the 8th principle. And in the interest of time, if you would, first of all, I'd just start with whatever you want to say and then go to the question, where did the 8th principle originate?
So good morning, everyone. I take it you can hear me okay? Is that right? Yes? Okay. Well, the 8th principle really grows out of many, many years of us working toward, again, the beloved community or toward wholeness. We have been engaged for decades in this work. And we've evolved as society has changed and evolved over time, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, right? But the 8th principle then became a way for us to say that we all know that part of the work of inclusion is to learn how to be in community together in ways that undo the old, outdated, they should be outdated, historic norms about who is included, who is not, the social hierarchies. And yes, it's about anti-racism, but it's also about anti-oppression in its other forms. So we as Unitarian Universalists highly value this, but we had not really centered it in the principles which are most important to everyone. We are held together by these principles, but we're also held together by theological pluralism. And Unitarian Universalism is unique because of our embrace of theological pluralism. We don't all have to believe the same thing, but being in community means that we contain difference. And if you think about that, it really does center diversity. It centers inclusion. And so the eighth principle is to help us to learn how to do that more effectively. It grows out of our anti-racism work, but it really is all-inclusive. What does it mean for us to truly build beloved community with this embrace of our pluralism?
And I'm gonna go ahead, and I realize, although we showed it at the very beginning, that's our quote for today. I'm just gonna go ahead and read the eighth principle: journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions to accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. And I remember, and something you wrote, you may or may not remember, something you wrote where you were talking about how you noticed that for a period of about 50 years, there was a really big gap on the work that we as a faith tradition did with regards to racial justice, and that we had moved forward with many of the other justice work that we were doing, like environmental justice, gender justice, LGBTQ+ justice, but there was a huge gap of about 50 years where really we weren't doing much with regards to racial justice work. And that was one of your reasons for thinking, wait, maybe if we had something more concrete in place that would draw our attention to that. Does that sound, am I misquoting you here, or?
No, you're correct. So Unitarian Universalists were very involved in the civil rights period. But the civil rights was focused on integration. And that was achieved in terms of law, but not in terms of practice. And again, I say in our country and also in our association. People bring what we learn and know and practice from the wider society to church. So we had the struggle for civil rights, but we all know that it didn't go far enough. It's unfinished business in our country. It is unfinished business, and probably not just our churches, but churches around the country. And so our work around anti-racism has, I think it had to emerge again. You know, the old conversation was about civil rights, integration. The later conversation was about anti-racism. Even if the laws change, if people don't change their attitudes and practices, then the laws are not as effective. And so we are trying to make that push. Now, it's important for you to note also that our association voted in 1997, it's 25 years ago, to become an anti-racist association. We have been doing that work to varying levels of effectiveness, but that vote came after the current principles were adopted. And we did not go back to reflect what we have been learning about inclusion. I think we've learned more in the last 25 years than we had learned in all the years before, but we did not reflect it. And so the eighth principle reflects that change. And we are asking people to center it in the life of congregations.
So
it's also, let me also include that the eighth principle is 10 years old. You know, so this is not a new suggestion or development. We have been working at this already for a decade.
Thank you. And speaking of the eighth principle being 10 years old, and so in light of the fact that currently the UUA come June, right? Right now there is a draft out of a proposed Article 2 where the principals lived, right? And so come June, we're going to be voting as a faith tradition on whether or not to adopt those proposed changes. So in light of that, why do you think it's still important to adopt, for a congregation to adopt the eighth principle?
Yes, so I gave this some thought, and I wanted to offer your members today something simple that might help you to remember why this is important. So 4 words for you to remember: grassroots, immediate, national, aspirational, or maybe. Now let me explain what I mean by that. The eighth principle is a grassroots movement. This is a bottom-up, and we are asking congregations, one by one, to do the work of adopting the eighth principle and then to live it out, to implement it. This is something that we can do. There are already 235 adoptions of the eighth principle. I will get a call this afternoon from a congregation that is voting today. We expect it to be positive. So there's a grassroots movement. Once you adopt the eighth principle, you have it. It's immediate. It begins to work for you. Now let's shift to national. The Article 2 proposed changes that you have probably heard about will be voted on for the first time in 2023 at General Assembly. It has to be voted on twice. This is according to the national bylaws, so it's a national process we are in, and the next vote takes place in June 2024. So we don't know what the outcome of those votes will be. It would be great if we have the numbers that we need to move it forward nationally. But we're not going to wait. We're not going to put all of our eggs in one basket. The eighth principle has been moving. It has lots of momentum, and we are going to keep that momentum going. So it's our assurance. And either way, we will win. We will bring about, at least center, the call for us to continue this work and change.
Thank you. Now, since you mentioned grassroots movement, right? So would you, could there be a conflict then between what is being done nationally and what is being done at the grassroots level?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there are a number of people who have gotten a bit confused about it. There is no conflict between the two at all, at all. The work that we will do around the eighth principle is the same work that we would do with Article 2, the proposed changes to our principles. So it would be a pretty smooth transition. The more work we do now, the more real the proposed changes to Article 2 will be. And let me also say, our principles are our covenant with one another, our covenant with the beloved community, and our covenant with the world. That's what the eighth principle makes explicit. So they're very important, and the changes to the principles in Article 2, we have reflected on our values, our highest shared Unitarian Universalist values, and our covenant. So when you read the proposal, it's because we value this, let's say, for example, justice, then we covenant to do, and the eighth principle is pretty much the language for the justice value. But I wanted to share that with you because I do believe the proposed changes are a fuller embodiment of Unitarian Universalism, and I also think that they will reach a lot of people who are looking for this more inclusive, liberal faith community that maybe have not found us yet. I think that the proposed changes and the eighth principle both are a big invitation to a much wider swath of people.
Yeah, that beloved community, when you mentioned that, and I know, as you've mentioned, right, this is 8 years old. The proposed eighth principle is, 10 years old, right? And so, and this is something you lived with even before that. And as a I was going to use creator, as a okay, sure, let's use that, of this principle, what are your hopes and dreams for it? What would you like, I've said this to you before, I really do think that you are one of the wisest voices in Unitarian Universalism today. Every time I've been at a workshop that you've been a part of, every time I've listened to a recording, there's always such depth, such wisdom, such grounding from what you say. So when you think about the eighth principle and the vision and so on, what is your dream for Unitarian Universalism as it lives out to the eighth principle?
Well, thank you first for your very kind words. One way that I can share the dream with you is really through our young people. And Linnea, thank you so much for the Time for All Ages today. Young people, for congregations that adopt the eighth principle, the children in Sunday school and youth, they will grow up with this as a normal way of looking at the world, a normal way of seeing themselves and each other. Just like our children have grown up with technology, they don't ask a lot of questions, and they're very, very proficient at using that technology. Congregations that adopt the eighth principle will provide that as part of the spiritual journey or the values for our young people. So that's one thing. We all of us who are older, we have to look beyond our own experience and see what kind of environment are we creating for generations that come after us. Yeah. That's one thing. Also, part of the vision I think many of us hold is that we have a legacy of justice. We have aspirations around inclusion. And the eighth principle, then, I am already seeing it being kind of a rallying call that many, many people are getting behind and supporting so that we can actualize that more fully in our congregations. And one more thing I want to share. I am experiencing it in a way that I hadn't expected. And I think that many people, when they really take this to heart, it becomes a new frame or a lens, and it's changing the way that I see a number of things. I never know when it's going to show up, but all of a sudden, it's like an epiphany will come, something that has been maybe common or everyday in life. All of a sudden, I'm seeing it now through a different frame. And it is a spiritual shift that's taking place. So I think that we are going to grow, one, in terms of numbers, especially with the community of community embrace. But I also think that we are going to have a bit of a spiritual awakening as we live more fully into the call of the eighth principle. Yeah. And Reverend Margalie, I'm also curious how you would respond to this question as well. What vision do you see in terms of the embrace of the eighth principle?
I'm glad you went to the children. I did a sermon when I was at another congregation, and I had some recordings of children talking about what the eighth principle meant to them, and it was just so clear that that was the community that they were looking to be a part of. And something I remember an adult minister who grew up UU said to me once that, you know, as a child, and her thought was that's one of the reasons she thinks many people leave in between and then come back later, because the experience from religious education and how we are teaching our children about all how to advocate for justice, and then sometimes they don't see it in us. Now, that was, of course, her experience, and felt that she felt that there was a disconnect somehow. So I'm thinking, my vision is, you know, the way we have the welcoming community program where you actually are working, it's on your mind to do something about being more welcoming, being a place where LGBTQ plus folks feel welcome and at home. And the same way we have the Green Sanctuary program, you know, it's part of what we do as a faith tradition. We have put things in place so that we are working on these things. We have nothing like that when you think about it for racial justice. And really, I think in my visioning, the eighth principle might be something that if enough congregations really are living up to our values, create something around that so that we are actively working towards that beloved community that we want to see, where everyone feels welcome. So yeah, that is my visioning around that. And then back to you, and this might have to be last question, or there might be one more, but I was thinking, when you say you vote for the eighth principle, and then, you know, almost like these things will happen, but I love how you added, you know, we raise our kids that way. So, okay, let's say we vote and it passes, then what?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
then what is it that the congregation needs to do to make sure that it's not just a vote that, hey, we passed it? We can say that when we are in different meetings. We could put it in our website, Facebook page. Then what, right?
I laughed because passing the eighth principle is actually the easy part.
Right.
What does it mean to live this? What does it mean to put it into practice on a daily basis? And that is the next part of the journey. In fact, what I would recommend as your next steps is to go back and to take a look at all aspects of church, your mission, your vision, your covenant. Look at each part of your ministry, your social justice, worship, religious education, on, and look at each part of the church through the lens of the eighth principle. What does it mean to ground your work in the eighth principle? And if that is happening systematically throughout your congregation, you will begin to see some shifts. But then also come back and take a look each year, maybe mid-year as well, check in and say, how are we doing? You know, so that it's not just a vote that happens, but that we also begin to, I don't want to say measure like you have to count numbers or anything, but that we have some indication of our efforts, our outcomes, and our growth over time. So we incorporate it into the life of the church.
Yeah.
The board plays an important role in this as well. The board should look at its work through the lens of the eighth principle, and to look at its policies through the lens of the eighth principle. You'll start to see things that you didn't realize were missing.
And the last one I will leave to you to tell us, what is it that you think that we need to know about the importance of this principle, or what is it that you think that we need to know that we may not fully be aware, that we're not fully understanding about this principle?
It's so important for people who are already in your sanctuary, who are already Unitarian Universalism. It may not seem as important as it might be to someone who is seeking and has not found that connection yet. I know I tell people, if I were in a UU church, let's say that I came for a wedding or for a memorial service or just a program, and I saw these principles, all 8, up on the wall. Our 7 principles are, I think are pretty interesting and exciting. But if I saw the 8th principle, I would want to know, so who are these people? I would be very curious about a congregation that was that explicit about its work to actually embrace beloved community. And so I think it's important to know that perhaps it'll speak most clearly to people who are not even present yet. The 8th principle, I think, is an invitation especially to younger people. And as one minister said, if you are looking to have people in your congregation who are 40 and younger, you really need to embrace the 8th principle, because this is the world that our young people already live in. They certainly want to see it reflected in their congregations. The 8th principle is an invitation to people of color, BIPOC people who are looking for a spiritual community that reflects their values. So there is nothing to lose by doing this. And again, we're just updating our principles because we have not included this aspect of our work.
Thank you so much. And I know I just asked you for last word. Last word?
Last word?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I believe that you can and that you will adopt the 8th principle. I wish you well on your vote, and that's coming up within the next month. And it's been a pleasure to work with your congregation. Actually, there are some congregations that I keep my eye on because I think that they're transformative. Their potential for transformation is very high, and you, Orlando, you're one of the congregations I'm watching.
Thank you. And briefly, the members of the 8th principle team who are here today, would you just stand so that the rest of the congregation can just see you? Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you so much, Paula. I know you have another engagement, so we'll let you go. But what a blessing to have you with us this morning.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to share Sunday morning worship with you.
Thank you.
Here.
Wow. All right, so now you have all the information that you need. And if you would now join us in singing, please rise in body or spirit and join us with singing the hymn number 68, One More Step, folk ensemble over there. I think that was enough for me.
Take one more step to
communities that seek to put limits around love or duty, the beloved community is that community that keeps drawing the circle wider and wider still. It is a loyalty that is based not on our sameness, but to the love that holds us across our differences. Reverend Gretchen Haley. Beloveds, worship has ended, and now the service truly begins.
Come on. Please say these words with me as we extinguish the chalice. Okay. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.